hell is it?
Throughout the history of Resident Evil, we've encountered a wide variety of viruses, from the classic T virus to the terrifying Las Plagas parasites. But among them all, there's one that stands out, not just for its destructive power, but for the perverse ideology behind its creation. We're talking about the Uroboros virus. This isn't a virus created for mere military purposes like the T virus, nor was it designed to exert control over the infected or to spread terror as just another tool of warfare. No, Uroboros represents something far more vile and far more terrifying. It was an attempt to reset humanity itself, to cast aside what was deemed weak and replace it with a new race of superior beings. This virus wasn't intended to be just another biological weapon sold on the black market. It was crafted as a declaration of war against humanity. Developed by one of the most iconic villains in the franchise, Albert Wesker, the Uroboros virus is the culmination of years of hatred, ambition, and an obsessive drive toward forced evolution. It's the darkest reflection of the eugenic ideology that began with Umbrella's original founders, but pushed to its most extreme conclusion. That's why, in this video, we're going to explore everything about the Uroboros virus, and how Wesker's twisted vision led him to become a self-proclaimed god, willing to sacrifice billions of lives to realize his so-called utopia. It all began with an idea, or rather an obsession disguised as philosophy. The belief that only the strong deserve to exist. That was the seed planted by Oswell E. Spencer, one of the co-founders of the Umbrella Corporation, when he laid out his failed plan to attain godhood through the forced evolution of humanity. And it was that same idea that Albert Wesker would adopt and distort, turning it into his personal doctrine. After the fall of Umbrella in 2003, Wesker moved freely through the black market. With access to confidential files and experimental viral strains, he forged an alliance with Tricell, an up-and-coming corporation eager to develop its own bioweapons. There he met Excella Jean, an ambitious executive who agreed to fund his vision. Alongside her, and with the help of Ricardo Irving, Wesker began crafting what would become his masterpiece. In 2006, Tricell located the ruins of the ancient Indapaya kingdom in Africa, where the Progenitor virus still existed in its natural form. Using this strain, Wesker began developing Uroboros. But there was a problem. The virus was too lethal. It didn't distinguish between the fit and the unworthy. It simply killed everyone. The solution came from an unexpected source: Jill Valentine. After having been infected by the T virus and later cured during the Raccoon City incident, her body developed unique antibodies. These were extracted by Wesker while she was kept in stasis, and they proved crucial in stabilizing the virus's evolution. With this breakthrough, the final version of Uroboros was born, one capable of adapting to a minuscule fraction of the human population. By 2008, Uroboros was ready. Wesker loaded the virus into missiles aboard a military aircraft, intending to release it into the troposphere, where it would disperse with the air currents, ensuring what he himself called complete global saturation. Despite this, Chris Redfield and Shiva Alamar, agents of the BSAA, an organization created in response to bioterrorism threats, uncovered the plan and infiltrated Wesker's facilities. At the climax of these events, Wesker, seeing his plan falling apart, pierced one of the missiles containing the Uroboros virus and infected himself, trusting in his superior genetics to survive. Although he managed to maintain a degree of control, his body began to mutate, becoming covered in black tendrils. In the final battle, which took place inside a volcano, Wesker was ultimately destroyed by the protagonists with 2 rocket launcher shots, while the heat of the magma further weakened the virus. However, the story of Uroboros didn't end there. In 2011, Alex Wesker, Albert's intellectual sister, and the last remaining project of Spencer, recovered a sample of the virus. She combined it with the T-Phobos virus and used it for experiments on the island of Sushesvavani, where deformed creatures such as the Revenants, reanimated corpses infected by Uroboros, were born, along with horrific monsters like the Slingers, Splashers, and the deadly Durga. Neil Fisher, leader of the humanitarian organization TerraSave, betrayed his allies to collaborate with Alex, only to be betrayed himself and infected with Uroboros. His mutation turned him into a hybrid creature similar to a tyrant, one of the few who managed to retain his consciousness after infection. It's important to note that it's unclear whether Neil was a fully compatible host, as he had been previously infected with the T-phobos virus, and it's possible that the combination of both viruses was the true cause of his mutation. The story of Alex Wesker ended when Claire Redfield and Moira Burton managed to defeat her. In a final, desperate attempt to escape death, Alex injected herself with a massive dose of Uroboros, transforming into an abomination. But she was ultimately destroyed with a direct missile shot to the heart, marking, at least officially, the end of the Uroboros virus. But what exactly is this virus? First of all, it's important to understand that this isn't just another biological strain within the Resident Evil universe. It is the pinnacle of knowledge and ambition accumulated over decades of experimentation. Uroboros is a direct mutation of the Progenitor virus, which is the source of virtually every virus developed by Umbrella. But unlike other strains like the T virus or G virus, which lead to uncontrollable mutations, zombification, or grotesque life forms, Uroboros had a singular purpose: to genetically select the worthy and destroy the weak. Biologically, the virus operates by invading the host cells and inserting its own genetic code. If the host body is compatible, the cells begin an accelerated symbiotic process that culminates in a superhuman transformation, granting the host incredible strength, enhanced speed, extreme physical endurance, and a regenerative ability bordering on immortality. In theory, even aging itself would stop, but if the host is incompatible, which is to say 99% of humanity, the virus consumes them from within. The cells are overrun by black, tentacle-like structures that destroy the organic tissue and transform the individual into a shapeless, parasitic mass, constantly seeking to absorb more biomass. These creatures are held together by bright orange cores, structures that resemble pustules but function as vital organs, acting as both the central nervous system and the creature's only weakness. In essence, the Uroboros virus is a form of biological judgment. It doesn't adapt to the host, it forces the host to adapt to it, and if they can't, they die. But if they succeed, they cease to be human and become something entirely new, something superior. And for Wesker, that wasn't a threat, that was a promise.
Soon, the sun will set on the age of man.
Throughout what we've seen in the games, Uroboros has given rise to a variety of creatures, each of them similar in origin, but with unique traits and abilities. One of the first we encounter is the Uroboros test subject, the first visible experiment of the virus. He was a resident of Kijuju, and after being infected, his body was completely overtaken by black tendrils, leaving behind a trail of death and destruction. This was the first being to demonstrate the virus's ability to transform incompatible hosts into uncontrollable biological weapons. There's also Uroboros Mikono, the result of another failed experiment. This creature was distinguished by its massive arm and multiple exposed cores. Its design appeared to be oriented toward testing the virus's combat effectiveness in direct confrontation, though its instability made it a threat to both allies and enemies alike. Additionally, we have Uroboros Aheri, which emerged when Excelligion was infected. Her body couldn't withstand the mutation and transformed into this monstrous, colossal mass of tentacles that absorbed biomass to grow larger. This creature represented the virus's potential to trigger a global catastrophe if released without control. Unlike other individuals, Albert Wesker achieved a partial symbiosis with the Uroboros virus. This not only enhanced his existing powers, but also granted him new superhuman abilities. However, it's important to remember that Wesker was no ordinary human. Aside from having previously injected himself with the prototype virus, his body had already been deeply altered from childhood as a result of decades of genetic experimentation by Umbrella under the directives of the Wesker Project. This manipulation made him a biologically unique being, predisposed to withstand extreme transformation. Still, despite his formidable mutation, Wesker never achieved full compatibility with Uroboros. This lack of perfect fusion left him vulnerable, and it was precisely that weakness which ultimately led to his defeat. On the other hand, in Resident Evil Revelations 2, we are introduced to the Revenants, creatures created by combining corpses with the Uroboros virus. These beings are grotesque fusions of human body parts and metal, boasting notable resilience and a deeply disturbing appearance. Complementing them are the Slingers, a variant of the Revenants that had mutated arms capable of launching explosive parasitic projectiles. Their regenerative capacity made them formidable opponents in combat and particularly difficult to kill. Likewise, the Splashers are another Revenant offshoot, distinguished by a toxic, pus-filled arm sac they could use to incapacitate enemies. Their design seems specifically aimed at disorienting and weakening their targets before delivering a final blow. Another grotesque creature born of the virus is the Durga, an amalgamation of multiple Revenants. The Durga was a towering monstrosity with multiple arms and overwhelming strength. Its name comes from the Hindu goddess of femininity, and its body resembles a tree-like form with a lower human torso and a large, glowing yellow Uroboros core at its center. Its head was surrounded by multiple assimilated limbs, arms from both Revenants and Splashers, and it possessed an indestructible tentacle ending in a three-clawed hand. The Durga uses these appendages both to protect its core and to attack. When those limbs are destroyed, the creature would enter into a violent frenzy. Its tentacle could crush victims with ease, posing a major threat in direct combat. There's also Neil Fisher, who I mentioned earlier. He was infected with both Uroboros and the T-Phobos virus. Because of this, Neil transformed into a creature similar to a tyrant while still retaining part of his consciousness. His mutation reflected the possibility that the virus could grant power without entirely erasing the host's identity. Just like Neil, Albert Wesker was another creature born from Uroboros infection. While attempting to transfer her consciousness into another body, Alex ended up infecting herself with the virus, becoming a monstrosity that also retained her intelligence and gained immense physical strength. However, her body failed to adapt to the virus. These are just some of the creatures that Uroboros has shown us. In the future, we might see new iterations if this virus returns in upcoming games. But from everything we've seen so far, it's clear that Uroboros wasn't just another virus in the Resident Evil universe. It was the ultimate manifestation of Wesker's twisted ideology, his belief that humanity should be purged and rebuilt, according to the distorted ideals of a self-proclaimed superior elite. And the greatest irony of all is that Wesker himself was not a viable candidate for the virus. For now, the Uroboros virus has been eradicated. However, its legacy remains a grim reminder. A warning that, just like with William Birkin and the G-virus, true horror is born when science is driven by unchecked, unethical ambition, an ambition that stops seeing people as human beings, and instead reduces them to disposable tools in the pursuit of a twisted ideal. And with that, we come to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on the notification bell to stay updated on all my new videos. See you in the next one. Hey, don't go just yet. If you enjoyed my video, I'd love to recommend another one for you to watch.